Hey, good afternoon, Facebook family. Come on in here. Come on into this classroom. Today is definitely going to be a place of learning, hopefully a place of expansion and healing as well. But come on in here. I'm going to wait a little bit for you all to come on in this room, as my family and ancestors were used to say. I got something juicy for you to share today. Particularly, I had an experience today. My spirit guide shared something with me today that I think you're going to really like, and will help you understand yourself. Hey, all of you all joining. Hey, Tasha. Hey, Cheryl and Brian. So come on in here. I'll start here in just a second, but I wanted to make sure you all came on into this room here, this classroom. Just a few housekeeping while we're here, all coming in and starting. Hey, Andrea. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Caroline. While we're all joining into this space, just a few, little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question for me during this particular time, please put hashtag Ask Jerome and then write your question in the comments. That lets me know there's a question. It kind of heightens it, or not heightens it, highlights it for me, and lets me know there's a question that I need to answer. Even if I don't get a chance to answer it during this live, I try to answer it in a future video. So that's one thing. Second thing is keep your comments cute. I am very serious about my boundaries. I protect my energy, and we're trying to heal here, and we're trying to enhance the well-being of all the soul beings that are in attendance and that all the soul beings that are listening. So keep your comments cute. I block easily. I protect my space, and I make no apologies for that whatsoever. So even if you're triggered, that's okay. Breathe while you're triggered. Breathe. Keep listening. Know that if you're triggered, that means there's something that's something your soul is trying to get your attention to. So, but just keep your trigger off the keyboard. All right. So let's go into the depth of this here. So one thing about my spirit guides, let me share this with you really quickly. One thing about my spirit guides, I work with a few of them. So I call them, the collective of them, the beloveds. They usually speak together, but sometimes they'll speak individually. But one thing about it is they speak to me in times where, and they've told me about this and why, but they speak to me in times where my consciousness is not very active. So where I'm not thinking very heavily, or I'm not running over things in my past or my presence, because this is something for you all that are wanting to know how to get in contact with your guides and reach a higher level of spiritual wisdom for your own life. You have to have gaps. You have to have more gaps in your thought. And what I mean by that is that's why meditation is a great way to receive higher spiritual wisdom during the time, why meditating every day, because it puts gaps in your thoughts. Walking in nature puts gaps in your thoughts. And for me, so I get a lot of guidance, and sometimes they'll speak to me and have conversations with me when I'm walking in nature, when I'm spending time in nature, when I'm meditating. I get a lot of my guidance when I'm meditating. Also, when I first wake up in the morning, when I first open my eyes before I get up out of the bed, because my mind is not racing. And also another place where they do it is when I'm dancing, because for me, and they told me for me, when I dance, I lose myself in it. I just go and I'm not thinking and I'm just in it, right? And that's when sometimes they will give me guidance as well. Guidance will come to me while I'm dancing. Another great place that I get a lot of guidance is when I'm taking a bath. Because if you know me, you know I do baths listen, I got to get my candles going. It's incense going. I close the door. It's soft music going. So that's another place where I just completely relax my consciousness. And so today, that was the case. I went to ZUMBA, and I go to ZUMBA. I work out. I do weight training, and I also do cardio. And my cardio is ZUMBA because I like to dance. So I went to ZUMBA today, and when I was Zumbaing, when I was in the process, I was just getting it. They started to download information for me, and I was at first I was laughing because I was okay, this is not towards the end of the class, so I can't stop and like write this stuff down. So I hope you help me remember this later. But they downloaded some things around, and they were showing me. And one thing about how guys offer information is they're more like teachers. I know we use the word guide, and a lot of times people think that they protect you or that they'll run your life for you, and they don't do that. They offer kind of, they kind of help you be aware of certain things. They'll bring certain things to your awareness for you. They do support you in some ways, but it's not like the protector or something like that, because from their perspective, there's nothing to protect you from. So anyway, before we go into that, I'll have to do another video about guys at some other point. But when I was dancing today and doing, in my Zumba, they brought my attention to, so I want to share this. I had a question, one that I'm going to respond to around forgiveness. And they dropped some information around this today too. And we're going to respond to that second. But I first want to share with you what they shared with me around why Black people tend to dance better than white people. So I was, in this Zumba class, in this particular Zumba class, the instructor is a white woman. And I'm usually the only Black person in this particular class. So most of the other people in there are white, and they are white. Most of them are white women, and there are a few white men that come in. And I have been taking Zumba, by the way, for years. And this is very important. So this is all going to come in. So I've been taking Zumba for years. Not necessarily with that particular instructor. I'm also a Zumba instructor. I'm a certified Zumba instructor. So I've been taking it for years. Occasionally I'll teach some classes. And so I've seen different, populations of people in this particular circumstance doing Zumba and dancing and exercising. And this particular class today, again, the instructor is a white woman, and the majority of the people in that, well, actually everybody else in that was white except for me. And there were a few men and mostly women. And what I was noticing, and what I've noticed over the years in Zumba, is most white people have a very hard time picking it up and like really getting into it. They have to come for a while before they really get into it. And even still, there's not a lot of them that really get like the flow of it in their bodies. And even with the instructor, sometimes I will see her, and I love her class. It's amazing, and I try to go every Saturday. But even sometimes with her, you can see the rhythm of it. She'll sometimes be off with it. And what I found a lot is with the Black people that I've seen that have come in, no matter who they are, what age they are, they tend to pick it up faster, and they tend to have a better way with that. And today I was noticing this around, there was this white guy and his wife that came in, and they had been coming probably the last maybe three classes. So they're still fairly new, but they are having such a problem with the rhythm. And also the instructor's husband comes in occasionally, and he just goes for it. He's full on support. I love it. But he also has some problem with the rhythm. And so I was thinking, I had this thought, like, I wonder what that is, right? I wonder what, like, why do they struggle so hard with rhythm like that? And, there's a lot of stereotypes out there that, all Black people, they can dance, white people can't jump, or white people can't dance. And so I was asking about this, kind of I put this into my consciousness, into my higher consciousness. I said, what is the truth around this? And what is the higher truth around this? So what my guide said to me and they started talking and downloading stuff during this Zumba class, what they said to me was it all correlates with what they've been giving me before about how Black people, especially in America, Black people manifest here. If the soul of Black people chooses to come in a Black lifetime, in this particular part of the world especially, but especially also in Africa, this is very true. But you come into this particular skin, and you come into this particular body, your intention is to be more soul-centric in your thoughts and in your perspective. And if you watch some of my other videos, if this is your first video of mine that you're watching, please go watch the other videos I've done during Justice June. You'll see the hashtag Justice June on my page, where I talked about Black people are more soul-centric in the consciousness, meaning they're more right-brained. and white people came to be more left brain and more egocentric in the consciousness. Please go watch that, because I'm not going to go in great depth with that today, but please go watch that, because you'll understand what I'm about to say, and you will have a hard time understanding what I'm about to say if you haven't seen that. But go watch that video where I really talk about the souls of white people chose to have a white experience, because that experience is going to be more egocentric. It's going to be more left brain dominant. And the souls of black people chose to be more right brain dominant, more soul, and that's where the soul consciousness is. So the soul consciousness is on the right brain and the ego consciousness is on the left brain. We have been very highly mis-socialized around what the ego is. We've demonized it. And it's not that the ego, you need the ego. And again, watch that video. I'm not going to talk about why you need the ego in this video, but you need it. But the problems are when you get imbalanced, when it's way out of balance and you're not integrating your soul consciousness at all, or at a balanced level to balance it out. And what they told me was this is what's going on, right? So why black people tend to dance better and they tend to catch on for things is these type of dances, like the ZUMBA, the hip hop, those things are very much around your creativity, which is more in the soul consciousness and is in the right side of the brain. And so people who are more right brain dominant, right, are going to pick up on the things faster. They're going to have more access and fluidity in their body, because that's part of and they're going to be more grounded in the body. Right? And I see some of you all talking about their shaming around sensuality. That all goes into the trauma around it. This is why there are some black people who can't move and don't have access, don't have like really groundedness in their body. There's a lot of shaming around that for them, or they have had traumatization around that in their childhood. Like if we've had any negative socialization or traumatization in our childhood around our bodies or around moving, we'll also be disconnected. But the right-brained people, that the souls that manifest here to be more right-brain dominant, are going to have more fluidity with their bodies. And this is what my spirit guides were telling me. They're going to have more fluidity with their bodies. They're going to be more anchored in their bodies. They're going to be able and they're going to be more creative with their movements. And what they said was also, this is why and so what I noticed in my Zumba class was not just that black people tend to pick up on it faster, but that white women had an easier time with it than white men. And what my guides were telling me, and this is going to be another video that I'll talk about because they downloaded this to me a few weeks ago, that women are more right brain dominant. So this is the thing this is the thing that to understand is when I'm talking about this black versus white relationships, and I'm talking about this consciousness aspect, it's not that you have to understand that the soul is multidimensional. So there are going to be other relationships, other aspects of your relationships where your consciousness is going to be, where you're going to shift consciousness. So as a man, my consciousness in my maleness is more egocentric. As a woman, your consciousness and your womanhood and your sexuality, right, is more soul-centric. And when it comes to race, black people are more soul-centric and right-brained, and white people are more left-brained and egocentric. And this is what happens. So like what I found is like, oh, the white women pick up more. They pick up on it easier. But the white men have such a hard time. They are having such a hard time. They cannot get it. I have seen white men come to Zumba for like months and still not get it. And it's because and also white men, white men are more, they're double. So you're white and you're male. So you have a double dose of egocentrism in your consciousness. And for white men, there's not a lot of teaching around how to integrate the soul aspect of your consciousness, right? And this is where this big aspect of white and black relations are. I told you in my last videos, we attract each other because we need each other. So black peoples, we teach how to be more in your right brain. how to operate in the world more in your soul consciousness, right? That's where your empathy is. That's where your sense of oneness is. That's where your creativity and your talents is, right? For example, why we catch up on dancing better, why we're always creative with dancing, why we create the new dances that the culture. If you ever watch like the new dances that come out that all the kids want to do and everybody's trying to do, if you really get truthful about and you look at where it started, where does it usually start? In the Black culture. Right? And the guys were saying there's a reason for this, because this is what your soul is here to do. Like, we have been shaming these aspects of ourselves, and we've been shaming these aspects of our expressions in the world, but we haven't really come to understand that this is literally a part of the intention for the soul. The soul intended to have this. This is how the soul intended to expand humanity, and this is how the soul intended for that individual to learn and to attract and to manifest a life. You came to manifest it and to learn more through skills and talents and the soul consciousness. You did not come, though, and this is where a lot of our issues are coming up on both sides. You didn't come to only operate out of that side of the consciousness. This is where integration is about. You came to integrate other parts of that consciousness into your being so that you can be a more fully expressed being. Right? You can be a more aligned being with the fullness of yourself, and that fullness presses the universe forward. And what's really happening is a lot of us are imbalanced and we're not integrated. So this is like, again, this is why, and like white men especially are very imbalanced on the ego side. Really, really imbalanced. Really, the majority. I'm not saying every white man on the planet, because this is the thing that you can see as well when you look at male and female relationships, right? The man and woman relationships, the issues that have been going on between men and women, about how men have been oppressing women, how men have been in narcissism around women, how men have been controlling, how they have not really seen women's plight and been seeing their lives and understood them at all. That's because men are on the ego side and they are imbalanced on that side, right? And what happens when, men and women get together and they speak, and a man actually listens to her, and he listens to her life, and he listens to what's going on with her, he begins to change. His consciousness begins to change. He begins to understand. He embraces more of his right brain, right? He embraces more of his soul consciousness, and he understands this, and he can move through the world as a more integrated person. Instead of being an impressive person, he is more of an honoring soul. Right? Instead of being hyper masculine, he embodies some of his femininity, right? Which is, by the way, what my guys have told me, and I'll be doing this in another video, is that we have been using masculine and divine feminine, because that's the terminology we understood at the time, and it's helped us understand it a little bit. But the deeper understanding is the ego versus the soul consciousness. So it's not necessarily the divine feminine, it's the divine soul consciousness, and it's not the divine masculine, it's the divine ego consciousness. So when a man has, when he has this experience, he becomes more integrated with both sides of the consciousness, right? And so he stops oppressing women, he understands their plight, he understands things that are going on, he speaks up about rape culture, all of that, right? And this is why, and this is what, why you will attract the opposite to help you integrate. This is our purpose. We each come here with different perspectives, and we are to shine those perspectives as clearly as possible, and then we will attract other people of the different perspectives to help us integrate. And so this is like what this is about. Like, this is where, and this is where I was like, oh my God, this all ties in, right? When I'm sitting here dancing, it's like, oh, no wonder like white men have a really hard problem in here. It's because white men have been really left side brain dominant, right? And the ego dominance is not just about self. It's also where your technology and your science comes in. It's where your grasp of language comes in. And it's all of that, right? So it has its gifts as well. And when you are in your perspective, that's why you bring these gifts out, right? That's why we've seen a host of white men bringing out like like moving with technology, moving with social media, moving with all that stuff. But it was like this thing. I was like, oh my God, I can see this playing out. I literally can see all of this happening. Like, oh, no wonder why it's the white women that get it faster in the white collective. The white women are going to get it faster because they are more integrated with their soul consciousness. They still have some egocentrism that they need to deal with, but they still have like they're at least more. They have that ability in them because of their womanness. And of course, the black folks are getting it faster because they are more in their soul consciousness, right? That's why we came here, to be more in our soul consciousness. But again, if you watch my other videos, where the black collective consciousness is out of balance is we need more of the ego consciousness. We need to integrate that, because the ego consciousness, by the way, is where you get your sense of sovereignty, where you get your sense of empowerment, where you get your sense of boundaries, right? It's where you get your sense of understanding what you need for yourself, for your own well-being, your personal well-being, and where you learn how to not have to be so collective focused all the time, right? Where you learn, instead of like always giving out your energy to others, you learn how to give your energy to yourself. And where you learn, instead of always worrying about others, you know, you can really put yourself first. Also, when you're out of balance on the soul consciousness side, that's when you get really open to groupthink. When you don't really understand what you believe for yourself, you don't really have your own conscience, but you get swept up into what the group is. You suppress your own needs, and you put the group's needs, your family, your culture, their needs in front, you know, before your own, and suppressing your own and all of that. So, watch my other videos in this where I talk a little bit about that, and I'll be going in detail about this more this month. But this was kind of something I wanted to share around this whole thing about why black peoples tend to dance better than white peoples, right? Collectively. Like, again, this is not across the board, but collectively as a majority. It's because of what our souls came here to do. It came to be more right brain dominant and more soul consciousness dominant. And that's where dancing is. That's where their creativity and being in your body and movement exists. And white peoples came to be more left brain dominant, more ego consciousness dominant. And that's kind of where the technicality of things is. Oh, this is another cool thing that they said. This is why I almost forgot this. This is really cool for me. It was like a big aha. So they said this is why white peoples excel in things like ballet, because that is a very technical style of dancing. And it's dancing and it's moving of the body, but it's very technical. And again, the left side of the brain and the ego part of the consciousness excels in the technicality of things. So I was like, oh my God, yes, that's why. And it's not that only white people excel in ballet or dancing of that type of thing, but dancing that has structure to it and that has technicality to it. That's where you'll see white bodies really, really excel, because that is right in the wheelhouse of their consciousness, of where they're predominantly in their consciousness in this lifetime. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Yes, 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 yes. So, and you can see it if you've ever been a dancer, and it's very linear. They have somebody saying it's very linear, and that's the linear aspects of all of this is in the left side of the brain. And again, the soul is here to move between, is to integrate. Now, you're not here to be fully integrated where you're completely in the middle yet. You are going to be more predominant in one side, but what's been happening in our culture and in our society is we are all tipping over into the other side of the balance. And I'll be sharing a video about why that is, why we tip over, why we become imbalanced. But we've been imbalanced. Andy, nobody said you didn't have soul, brother. Nobody said you didn't have soul. Again, you guys, don't watch your triggers in here. Watch your triggers. Nobody said anything about white people didn't have soul. You got soul, brother. So, you are a soul, right? And you're having a different experience than I am. So anyway, you're come to have a experience that leans one way more than the other. And this is literally why you're a certain color, because the color has a certain color. And this is, if you know this, if you any of you all out there who are psychics or intuitives, you know this, that color has vibration to it, and it has focus. And this is why the different chakras of the body are different colors, right? Because they have different focus and they have different perspectives, right? Your root chakra is red because that's the color that has to do with safety and groundedness and being closer to, and it's a lower vibration closer to the earth. It's the same thing that goes on with us. We have different colors because these colors are different vibrations and they offer different perspectives. And the beauty about the soul is you want to integrate. You want to integrate, right? So again, it's not full into, you're not going to be like, where I'm fully this, unless that's what your particular soul wanted to come into. And there are some souls who manifest in this lifetime who want to be right in the center where they operate out of both equally. But right now, when you're the majority of souls are going to come in and they're going to want to be more like in this perspective or more in that perspective, right? More left brain, more right brain, more in the ego consciousness, more in the soul consciousness. So, so that's what they shared around that. And that was pretty cool for me. And I hope I see some of you all got ahas around that as well. But that was kind of an aha around that. Why, and again, even look at, I share with you why it makes sense for white women to get it. If you even look at it again for black folks, black women are, when it comes to the body and moving the body and dancing, are like up here. That's why they're like way up here. And black men are like, they're black men, like I can move and all that, but that's why black men are I won't say less than, because I don't want to make it sound like we're talking about inadequacy at all, because we're not. But that's the challenge, because again, the soul comes to manifest challenges for it. It makes challenges so that it can expand and learn through these challenges and expand itself. And so the different perspectives help you with your challenges, by the way. This is what I'm really saying. They help you with your challenges. And so your challenges are centered in your consciousness and like what your perspective of your consciousness is. So again, the consciousness for the people that are more soul-centric, more right-brain-centric, the big challenge for people who are more soul-centric in the consciousness is going to be sovereignty. Because that is really run by the ego side of the consciousness. Like really having a strong sense of self, really having a strong empowered self, boundaries, really feeling worthy, and like all of that is in the sovereignty aspect of the consciousness. The people that have are going to be in the left side of the brain, the egocentric part of it. Your big challenge is going to be empathy and connection and oneness. Because that's the left side of the brain, and the ego part of the consciousness is self. It's going to be very strong in self. And so yes, you get sovereignty, but then it goes way over into sovereignty, into like me, and not being able to see outside of your own perspective, and not being able to understand someone else's perspective, and not being able to really sympathize and feel connected in a sense of oneness with other people that aren't like directly in your family line, right? That you don't feel like, can you feel a sense of absolute connection and belonging and absolute, like, what happens to you happens to me. I feel that with someone who's outside of your own family line. Like that's the challenge that you're here to master. You're here to master that. And that's literally what's going on. And you watch some of my other videos, I talk about that. That's literally what's going on with a lot of the racists, with the racism. And why we're just not taught this in school, and why we don't know all of this, and we're not really taught, especially because our school systems and our entire society, especially in the West, was created by people that were egocentric, were left brain dominant. And so all the systems and the schoolings are teaching you how to be more further in the ego than in the soul part of your consciousness. So we are becoming way out of balance. around that. And it's really time to rebalance that, to bring it to tip the scales more, so that it's more in balance. So again, if you all are just joining, if you have a question for me, put hashtag Ask Jerome. I see one of the questions here. What happens with someone who is white Hispanic like myself? So Italian, Puerto Rican, I like to dance, but I'm a bit stiff to around the hip area. So I haven't really gotten, I haven't tuned into the higher guidance around other ethnicities around this time, because I've really been focusing on the black-white epidemic right now. But what I would say is, especially if you're mixed, again, the soul is it has a myriad of experiences. It is unlimited, right? So really look at it. Like, take a look and see for your own self. Like, okay, so if the white part of my aspect is to be in my left my left brain and my ego consciousness, and if I'm a person of color and my other makeup is history and ancestry is of people of color, then I'm probably here to be even more integrated. Right? Which is what I guarantee you is the case for people who are mixed heritage. You are of, you're white and black, or Latino and black, or white and Latino, or white Chinese, or Chinese and black. You are here to mix those consciousnesses together and to come from the blend of both of those perspectives. The same reason why the soul chooses parents. It's the same thing. You are here to be a blend of both of your parents' consciousness, and to expand that out into a unique perspective that is you. But you come to be a blend of both of them. You come to be a mix of both of them. Like, this is literally why the outer physical world is literally a reflection of the internal energetic world. So there's no coincidence spiritually why you have the DNA of both of your parents, why you even look like both of your parents put together. You may look like more than the other, right? And there's a reason for that. But, you have features of both of them because you came to be a combination of both of them in consciousness, in energy, and to take the combination of both of them into a place that neither one of them has ever been before. You came to expand consciousness and to expand vibration. But to have the footing and the foundation of those two people, right, to do that. So that's kind of why, so I would look at it like that. Like, okay, so what do I notice about my Latino heritage or my Hispanic heritage? What do I notice about my white heritage? And taking some of this, what I'm talking about now, like, okay, so my white heritage is an ego consciousness. Maybe my Latino heritage is more on the right side. And you can just look at that, right? Look at that. It tends to be the people of color, from my particular perspective, people of color tend to be more in the soul consciousness or the right brain consciousness. And again, I'm using soul consciousness, so I don't want to have this as something. What I'm saying is, I really want to make sure you are understanding that soul. When I'm saying soul consciousness, it doesn't mean it's better than the ego consciousness. They are two sides of the same whole. It's literally like if I was saying your right brain is better than your left brain, so you might as well cut your left brain out. That doesn't make any sense, right? Both sides of your brain are absolutely equally valued, and they have great gifts. And if you're in one side more than the other, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have problems. There are going to be some problems that arise from that. And this is what we're talking about, right? And so you just want to learn how to integrate it a little bit more. So I hope that helps you around that. So I want to share with you all and move to the other thing around what they said about forgiveness. So this was inspired by a question that I received up under one of my former up on our past post that I put not a few days ago. I put a post about how what would be beneficial to heal racism, to begin the healing process of racism from my white family's perspective, is for white people to start practicing Ho'oponopono. So Deborah says, I'm biracial, black, Christian mother, white, Jewish father. I'm here to embody both sides. You're here to be embodied of all of that. Of all of that, right? Of all of what that is and all the consciousness behind that. The good part of the consciousness, not the wounded part of the consciousness, the traumatized part of the consciousness, or the neurosis part of the consciousness, but the gifts of those consciousness, to bring them all together in your own unique way. That's why you came. That's why your soul chose the blending. Listen, the soul does not choose anything without absolute intention. When we are in our whole full spiritual selves, when we are in our full higher self form, or the soul form, or when we are in the other side, which is the dimension of oneness, we only choose things from absolute understanding, from absolute intention, and absolute joy. I have talked to many souls on the other side. When I used to do, when I was just doing mediumship work and talking to people's loved ones who crossed over on the other side, and talking to other people's guides and other people's angels and all of that. And I can tell you, they've said this to me time and time and time and time again. The soul does not choose anything out of responsibility or obligation. Nobody is making the soul do anything. Nobody is forcing them to do anything. They don't choose to do anything out of like, oh, I guess I'll manifest again in this lifetime because I gotta learn and I gotta earn some brownie points so I can ascend. They don't do that. They do it from like, I can't wait. It's almost like, imagine a kid at an amusement park. You're taking a kid to an amusement park and they're at the gates and you're like paying the ticket and the kid is like jumping around. They cannot wait to get into this amusement park because they can imagine all the fun they're going to have and all the challenges that these rides and things are going to bring to them. Is very much like that. So your soul does it from the intention. They understand fully what this particular circumstance is going to offer them and the challenges it may offer them. And they are really, really excited to come here. It is not a punishment. This dimension is not a punishment. It is a playground. And so, to answer your question again, you came to have the experience of all of that put together. All of that, all of that, all of that. All of that. So, let me get into the part about forgiveness. So, I had a question that was asked of me when I posted this. I wrote a post up about how one thing that will be beneficial for white peoples to do in America, especially, to begin to heal racism energetically, is to start practicing Ho'oponopono. And I said, if you're not familiar with it, research it. Research what it is, what the process actually is, what it naturally was intended to do, and how to naturally do it. Like how the Hawaiians, the native Hawaiians actually practiced it. Because it is a very powerful shifting tool. And it is very much about empathy and connection and the power that you have in your empathy and your connection. So there was one of my followers made a comment under there. And her name was Karen, and Karen commented and said, she understands, but she's also she was asking because she kind of feels kind of iffy about it because she wants to know, she's kind of feeling less forgiving and more, stronger on like standing her ground with the white people in her community. She's a white woman, and standing her ground with the white people in the community. She wanted to know, like, is this really the way? Like, is forgiveness a part of this? Because part of Ho'oponopono is like forgiving. And when I talk to my guys about this, and Andrea says, what do you think about white folk using a practice that is Hawaiian, indigenous in nature? Any issues with that? So here's the thing I have with any indigenous practices. Ho'oponopono is out there now. It has been put out publicly for a reason. The thing that you want to do is, again, study how it's actually done. Study how it is supposed to be done. Study how the indigenous Hawaiians actually did it and what the purpose was and what all they did with that. Like, a lot of it has been whitewashed, where people just use the four statements, and that's why they're not having such a magical shift in their experiences with it, because there was a lot of ritual that went around with that. There was a lot of inner work that went around with that the indigenous Hawaiians practice with it. So again, if you study an indigenous spiritual and energetic practice, and you actually study the principles behind it, why they did it, and how they did it, then you are going to be honoring the practice instead of appropriating the practice. You'll be honoring the practice, and you will be doing it how it was intended to be done in the world, and you will get the shift from it, right? It's very much like yoga, right? So yoga was a spiritual practice to recenter yourself into your spirit. It wasn't an exercise. Like it was an exercise. It was part exercise, but the purpose of yoga is to recenter you back into you, to recenter you with your higher self. And when it's when it's practiced like that, and when people teach it from that perspective, people have profound things, and nobody has a problem with it. Where people do have a problem with it is when it just becomes a workout routine, and it's not focused in all the elements that bring you back in connection with your higher self. So, all right, so that's the answer to that from my perspective. So here's the thing about forgiveness, and here's the conversation I had with my guides around this. So I am always of the stance to forgive everyone for everything. Forgive everyone for everything. And here's why. I really want to make this very clear that forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is not about condoning the activity. It is not about saying that this was okay, that this happened for me, or that this was pleasurable for me. Forgiveness is about returning your internal energy to your soul. And why that's important to do is because you cannot experience any form of well-being or wellness, and you can't make any positive transformation in your life if you are disconnected from the energy of your soul. That's why always forgive. Because what forgiveness is literally for giving yourself back to yourself. Forgiveness is the practice of giving yourself back to yourself. Because when you are in resentment, you are going to be disconnected from your soul's energy, because your soul's energy is not in resentment. It is love energy, right? So you want to be, it's peace energy. Because when you're also having forgiven, you're not at peace. You know, one of my things for when you're forgiven is when that person and that event has safe passage through your mind. Meaning that when you think about that person and when you think about that event that happened with that person, there's not bombs going off in your head. There's not knives shooting out at that person. They have safe passage through your mind, right? So that you know you are at peace with the situation, and here's the thing that happens when you truly forgive, and this part of forgiveness is as a soul, you understand that even though this experience might have sucked, even though this experience was painful, even though I don't want this experience again, it served me somehow. It expanded me somehow. It helped me be clear on what I don't want for my life. It helped me get clear on what my boundaries might be. It helped me get clear on how I want to move and what type of relationships I want in myself. It helped me get clear on the type of behavior how I was allowing people to walk over me. It helped me get clear on how I need to express more clearly about what I really want instead. Because a lot of times a painful situation will show up, and your soul will send a painful situation to help you clarify what you really want, because sometimes you're not clear. And so that's really a case of one part of forgiveness is you understand. I understand that this came to serve me. Now, that doesn't mean that that you get to do it again. That doesn't mean that sometimes forgiveness doesn't even mean that you have to reconcile the relationship. Right? So forgiveness is about keeping you clear in my heart. And sometimes that means that I need to not keep you in my life. Right? So because here's the thing about forgiveness, and this is kind of where I feel the energy of this question coming from. If the person that you're with hasn't learned how to stop offering harmful behavior to you, right? Whatever that behavior was that harmed you in any type of way, or made you feel violated, or made you feel hurt, or whatever that was, If the person has not learned how to stop offering harmful behavior, then you don't need to be in a relationship with that person until they do, because you deserve to be loved. That's why you're here. You are to be loved and to be loved. So you deserve to be loved. And if they are continuing harmful behavior, they are not loving you. And so you don't have to establish a relationship with them anymore until they learn. They may learn, they may not. If they learn and you want to reestablish the relationship, great. If they don't, don't. So forgiveness isn't about that. We've been taught forgiveness wrong. Forgiveness is about letting people walk over you. Because another thing that happens with forgiveness is once you understand that this thing came to serve me, and once you begin to be at peace in your system, you begin to understand, what do I need? What do I need to experience well-being in this situation? And that may be a boundary. That may be, hey, let's have this conversation. What you did to me really hurt. And this is why it hurt to me. And you can't do that again. You can't, like, I remember I was in a relationship with someone and he called me a name. And I was like, we don't get to call each other that. Like, we don't, and you don't get to speak to me like that. You don't ever, in this relationship with each other, both of us don't get to call each other names. We only get to speak to each other from a place of love. You can be angry with me and speak to me from what bothers you and what you're angry with, but you don't ever get to misname me. You don't ever get to try and diminish me. And if it happens again, this relationship is over, right? That's a boundary. That's communicating a boundary, but I'm still in relationship with this person, but I have a boundary. Now, there have been some times where, the situations have happened where I said, hey, you haven't learned how to stop your behavior yet. That's harmful, and this is harmful behavior. And in order to take care of me, I need to end this relationship. I need to put space between us. You're going to be in my heart. I'm not going to think anything negative of you. I'm at peace with this situation. I understand why it showed up for me, because that's the other thing. Everything is a lesson. This is something that came from A Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles says, everything is a lesson God would have me learn. And if you understand that what God is the energy and the consciousness of love, the energy and the consciousness of love, then you understand that everything is a lesson that love would have me learn. So this situation right here is teaching me something about love. It came to teach me something about love, either love for myself, love for a greater, it's mainly love for myself, or how to love someone else. And one, I'm going to give myself back to love. And then in order to hold myself in love here, we need to separate this. We need to end this. This relationship is complete, right? And that's really what forgiveness is about, right? So forgiveness is about returning my energy to love. I will still love you, but I may have to do it from a distance. I will still love you, but I may have to do it from not being in a relationship with you. Right? I'm not doing it because I hate you. Like, I'm not doing it because I still have resentment for you. I'm ending this relationship. Again, that's when you know you've forgiven, is when they have safe passage through your mind. And when I'm at peace with you, and I'm at peace with what happened, and I understand that it served me, then I can really say, oh, I don't have any ill will against you. I don't want anything negative to happen to you. And now I'm just literally making an assessment on whether or not you have stopped the harmful behavior, or whether or not, and if you have stopped the behavior, then okay, we'll continue relationship and we'll have a communication about how we need to flow in this relationship from this point on, what the boundaries are, what's important to each one of us, what's harmful and what we no longer need to be exhibiting or offering. But if the harmful behavior is not stopped and you are not changed enough to be able to stop the behavior, then I need to be more, to love myself even more. I need to step back from this relationship and complete it. So understanding that from forgiveness, then always forgive. You absolutely need to forgive as a white person. Even when dealing with white people in racism, you have to come from forgiveness. Another reason why you have to come from this aspect is because if you are showing up to someone else with the energy of resentment and rage, then that, you have to understand, we are soul beings. We are connected. We are only having the illusion of being separate. And if I am immediately coming into this with rage and resentment for you, you are going to feel that. Even if you don't understand it, you're going to feel it. And that is going to color how you engage with me. And not only is it going to color how you engage with me, but it's going to color the outcome of this situation. Because remember, how you internally feel manifests the outcome, because your life has to be a reflection of that. So if I'm showing up with anyone in any relationship and I have resentment towards you or I have anger with you, you cannot engage with me in a way that is going to make me feel any less resentment or any less anger. This is the higher mastery understanding. You have to always take care of your energy. There's a great teacher, I think this actually came from Jill Bolte Taylor, this statement where she said, you have to be responsible for the energy you bring into a space. You have to be responsible for the energy you bring into a space, because that energy is going to determine what happens in that space. This is why you forgive everyone for everything. Now, forgiveness takes time. You're not just going to jump into forgiveness right away. Right? You're not going to jump into it right away. But again, it's not about them. It's not about making them okay. It's not about making the situation okay. It's about returning your energy to a higher vibration of love, to a higher vibration of your soul. Because if you are not in alignment with the energy of your soul, you are not going to be able to influence any positive change in that situation. Especially around this, because this is a very highly charged, racism and conversations around it are so highly charged. They are so highly charged, especially in white communities. They are very, very highly charged. And so if you're going into that community to have these type of conversations, if you don't go into that situation with an energy that is love, you about to get fucked up. And I don't mean fucked up like physically. I mean, you about to fuck your life up energetically. Because it's just too much. You've got to be aligned. You've got to be aligned. Because you're already going to go into there having some hard conversations. You're already going to go into there bringing up some stuff for yourself and for other people. And so that is, this is really, really, really important. So you got to take care of your energy, you guys. We are not going to be able to end this if you all are not coming from a high energy. If you're not, and what I mean by high energy, you don't have to worry about all of these other energy techniques and all of that. Your soul's energy is high. It's the highest energy out there. If you just get in alignment with it, you will be a high energy in the space. And you will positively affect change, even though you didn't even say a lot. Even though you might not even have done a lot. You have positively shifted things just from your energy. And this is why forgiveness is so important. So important, so that you can stay in your energy. Another reason why forgiveness is so important is because when you're doing work like this, when you're really starting to do this, shifting us out of racism work, and you're not coming and centered in your energy, again, there's a lot of rage. There's a lot of hatred in that. There's a lot of that going on, and it will suck you in, and it's going to drop your energy even lower, and you're going to get sick. You're going to get sick because you need your soul's energy in your body at a consistent level in order to maintain wellness. And so when there's a block to it, or it's being leaked out any type of way, and this is what happens when we get into big situations when we're in resentment or we're in anger for long periods of time, right? When we're in resentment and anger, and then we get into with a group of people that are in that too, it drops it. So this is really important to understand. So my, response to that is always forgive. Always forgive. This is why I ask you to do, white people, to do Ho'oponopono. The one huge aspect of it is forgiveness. Forgiving yourself and forgiving another person. Listen, there is no coincidence. If you have never really read and watched people's stories who have been like, there's no, like, this is me personally speaking. I have never seen it not happen where I have truly forgiven someone that I've had an issue with, that I have ever truly forgiven them, and I have not experienced a miracle afterwards. I have never, across the span of my entire life, whenever I have truly forgiven someone, I have experienced a miracle after that. And I'm not kidding. I'm not talking about like some little I'm talking about there was a palpable miracle that appeared in my life after I worked on forgiveness. And when I did it truly, again, when I was at peace in my energy field, and when that person in that situation had safe passage through my mind, and where I had understanding of why that situation had to happen for me. I might not have liked that it happened. I might not want it to happen again, but I understand now why that situation happened to me and how it expanded me somehow, how it served the very evolution of my soul. When I got to that point where I was at peace and that I understand and I am back in my energy and I don't have any resentment for that person, a miracle has showed up every time. And you guys, I have had to forgive many people in my life. I have had a lot of situations in my life that caused me harm, emotionally, physically, etc. And I have had to do a lot of forgiveness work. And I can tell you, in every single situation where I forgave, a miracle happened. There was a miracle that showed up. It was either in that relationship, a miracle happened. Sometimes it would happen in my finances. It happened in my personal life. It happened in my health. I will never not sing the praises of forgiveness because I know what it does. I know what it does. And again, we're here to be love and we're here to be loved. And none of those is possible until we do forgiveness. And we are going to have to, what we're trying to do in this racism thing is return us to love, right? In the last part of this question, forgiveness also doesn't mean, and I've said this, but I want to say it very clearly. Forgiveness also means that you're probably more boundaried now. You're probably more boundaried. When you forgive someone, now you're very clear about also what a harmful behavior is that you're not going to accept anymore, that you're not going to accept for yourself. You're now clear about that. You're clear about a harmful behavior that you're not going to accept. You're clear about a type of engagement towards you that you're not going to accept anymore because that doesn't nourish or serve your well-being. So you're very clear about that. So yes, like with the question that Karen was having, so yes, go in. If you're very clear about what your boundaries need to be and what's okay with you and what's not, you absolutely can go into those spaces and those communities with that energy. But you also need to come into the energy with it, with being at peace, with being centered and aligned with yourself. You put being at peace and having clear and strong boundaries first with yourself, and then being able to really communicate that with others, a person who is in alignment and a person who is empowered and has their boundaries intact, that person is very powerful, and they will implement and influence positive change in every space that they move in, guaranteed. A person who is not in alignment with themselves and a person who doesn't have strong boundaries is going to get hurt in a lot of the spaces that they move in. And they're going to probably cause some type of damage. Because that's where most of our causing of damage to others, and especially to ourselves, comes in, where we're not in alignment, where we're not in tune, when we're not embodying our soul's energy, and also when we don't have boundaries. Now, I don't mean every place in your life is boundary and that you're so like you're shelled up like a tortoise that you're putting. That's not the purpose of boundaries. Boundaries is to honor things that are very important to you, and also to make you understand what's not acceptable for you. And what I mean by not acceptable is what is going to harm your well-being, your sense of well-being. And it's important to have that, right? And the more in alignment you become, by the way, your boundaries do shrink down a little bit. You become less boundaried. But when you're working on getting in alignment, you have to have more boundaries. And we'll talk about that in another video too. But yeah, this is what this is about. So forgive, absolutely. Have boundaries, absolutely. Stay in alignment, always, as much as possible. Well, always is probably not possible. There's going to always be something that happens that shifts you out of alignment. That's also why you came here as a soul, is to have experiences that challenge your alignment a bit. But the goal is to be in alignment the majority of your life and not the minority of your life. So get in alignment, forgive, have boundaries, and remember why your soul came here, you know, to have a perspective, and that will exist in one of the other sides of the brain. And the challenge that you're here to master is how to integrate that other side of your consciousness into your daily living, how to integrate it more. So I hope this has helped you all. I just wanted to pop on. I know I went longer than I initially intended, but thank you all for joining me. I hope this has been a blessing to you and that you learned something for your own expansion and your own well-being. And until next time, I love you. Now go love yourself.